This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. Joining me is Representative Bruce Westerman. He is a Republican, represents the 4th District of Arkansas. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Roby, good to be with you.
In a while, yeah.
Yeah, good to
Doing
be
all
back
right?
out of D.C.
Yeah.
Home in the natural state for Independence Day.
You're going to be around for a few days. That's good. Let's begin. You guys have had a flurry of activity here as the tail end of, I guess, this latest portion of this session of Congress has gone through. I want to begin with the deficit and where we stand with that right now. We also got some new GDP numbers this week as well. GDP growth not nearly as strong as we had hoped for, revised to 2%. Deficit, new numbers show that we're up to $666 billion, potentially $1 trillion by 2020. This does not seem like things are going in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I think the economic numbers are still better than where they've been, and the unemployment numbers are still low. The deficit, I mean, that's the reason I voted against that big omnibus bill, is because I'm greatly concerned about deficit spending and about the debt overall. You know, we're approaching $21 billion, or $21 trillion, excuse me, dollars in debt. And I'm on the budget committee, so I look at these numbers a lot. And I think what the American people don't realize is if we could just slow the rate of growth of spending, you know, instead of growing the government at 7% per year, if we grew it at 2% per year, we could still balance our budget within 10 years. But the CBO puts a baseline number out, and anything off of that baseline gets labeled a cut. And as long as we're too afraid to reduce the growth from 6 or 7% per year down to 2 or 3% per year, it's mathematically impossible to balance the budget.
Where would be the places where you could do that slowdown in the biggest way to get the biggest bang for your buck?
Well, everything that's been reduced in spending has been on the discretionary side, which is less than 30% of everything that's spent. That's where the big budget battles come on whether we're going to shut down the government or not. And I will say this year we've passed appropriation bills out of the House, and they've actually passed them out of the Senate. So we're way ahead at this point in time as far as not having a government shutdown.
Must be an election year.
Well, I think President Trump saying that he's not signing another omnibus bill, I think that got some attention over in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And you know, last year we passed all 12 appropriation bills in the House, and they never were able to get the cloture vote to take them up in the Senate. Thus we got into the CRs and the omnibus. It ended up there
Continuing
in March.
resolutions, all those things
Right.
that extend state government spending.
Or federal government.
I'm sorry, federal government spending. I've got state government on my mind today. But what about defense spending? We see growth in defense spending, yet that's an area where we could curb growth as well if you wanted to, but that doesn't seem to be on the priority list there. I know there's some needs that need to be caught up, but at the same time, you're talking about a significant amount of money where there is fraud and abuse in the system.
Yeah, and I'm all for auditing the Department of Defense and getting rid of the fraud and abuse. There's fraud and abuse and waste in all parts of government. But we've also got aircraft that are falling out of the sky. We've got our men and women who put their lives on the line to defend this country, who aren't properly equipped, who aren't getting pay raises. We're able to give a 2% pay raise for our servicemen and women. And you know, I'm for having a strong military, and I think that's when we look at the constitutional duty of the federal government, it is to provide for the common defense, and our military is critical in providing for that
we should
defense.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what's happening on the tariffs front here, we've enacted tariffs against Canada, against Mexico, the European Union, China. Some of it's talk, some of it's reality. We've seen responses from Harley-Davidson, for instance. At the same time, we've seen Big River Steel announced a big expansion this past week of their steel production facilities up there. Are we winning this trade and tariffs battle? It seems to me that we are not.
Well, and time will tell whether we win or not, and there's a lot of things still at play on that. You know, it makes me nervous. I think it makes a lot of people nervous, especially when you look at the economy in Arkansas with agriculture, the exports that go out from there. You know, there's always a give and take, which I think Canada announced some tariffs on some food products from the U.S. Today. And, you know, I don't think we need a trade war, but I do think we need to do things to decrease the trade deficit that we have with other countries. A lot of these products that come into our country, they're getting tariffs put on them. They're inputs into manufacturing, which creates a lot of jobs here. And even though we may not be shipping those products back out, we're growing wealth here internally in the country. So trade is it's a web of issues. You pull on one area and it affects something else.
Yeah.
So,
are you hearing from manufacturers? Are you
Oh,
hearing
yeah,
from farmers in your district, and what are they saying to you?
they're cautiously nervous. Some people are benefiting from the stuff that's going on, just like you mentioned about the steel. But there's concerns about poultry. There's concerns about rice. Manufacturers are concerned about increased prices on steel and aluminum that goes into
Timber,
their
another
product.
big area in your district.
Timber. This isn't something new. It's the softwood lumber agreement. With that softwood lumber agreement situation where it is now, the timber and wood products is actually increasing in the U.S. We've seen increases in lumber prices, so people are building more mills, more people are going to work.
Some of that's because the steel prices have gone up so much they've had to use more wood in construction.
Well, that's another interesting thing. There is a lot more wood being used in construction, which is a good thing, but there's still plenty of steel and concrete being used in construction as well. I don't know if you've seen where the University of Arkansas built a new rare book storage building out of wood, a product called cross-laminated timber.
And announced a big program to do more innovation in timber usage and stuff as well. Yeah, we reported on that.
2 5-story dormitories that are going up there. Arkansas is blessed with a lot of natural resources, and we stand to profit from being able to put in manufacturing that utilizes those resources.
Yeah. Lastly, let's talk about the family separation issue, the illegal immigration issue that has been at the forefront for really the last several weeks at the national and international level. Are you satisfied with the resolution of where things are at this point in time? The president backing off of his zero tolerance policy and the fact that it doesn't look like now Arkansas is going to be home for any of these refugees.
Yeah, and this isn't something that just happened within the last few weeks. This was going on even back in the Obama administration. It's just come to the forefront here recently. The federal delegation worked very closely to push the federal government away from, number one, building a facility at Kelso, which is, quite frankly, one of the dumbest things I've heard of. The site of a World War II.
Stick around a little longer, you'll hear dumber. So,
well, a World War II internment camp, and you want to build a detention center there. The optics of that aren't very good at all. So I think that's been totally squashed. I have problems, and the rest of our delegation has problems with putting a detention facility on an active Air Force base, especially with the mission at Little Rock Air Force Base, with some of the sensitive things that are handled out there. And I think for now that's gone away, but we're keeping a very close eye on it.
Yeah. Are you worried, you concerned? What's your reaction when you see those families getting separated? I understand the argument that there are some people that are using human trafficking as an excuse to bring some of these kids in, but there are a lot of examples of kids, young kids, being separated from their mothers and their fathers who are here seeking asylum legitimately. And does that not trouble you in the way that has been handled?
That's why I put the statement out when it first came about, that we need to do everything we can to keep those family units together. But there are instances where you don't want the child to stay with the person that brought them across the border. We still have sex trafficking. We have all kinds of human trafficking that takes place on the border. We also have a lot of unaccompanied minors that come across the border. So you have to have a facility to house them while they're here as well. It's not just cut and dry, one broad stroke, and you can fix immigration. Sure. I know we've worked really hard on an immigration bill in the House. We've voted on 2 of them. One of them I was a co-sponsor of. It was, I think it's being called Good Lat 1 now. Mm-hmm. And it dealt with the 4 pillars of border security, the visa lottery program, chain migration, and the kids that were brought here when they were too young to know they were committing a crime, the DACA population.
Lots of people, lots of Republicans have blamed the Democrats for this situation. I've seen a lot of political rhetoric, and it goes back and forth. But at the end of the day, the Republicans have the majority in Congress, and the Republican caucuses seem to be split Freedom Caucus, other Republican caucuses there. Why can Republicans not get on the same page on this issue?
I think we will get on the same page. These are important issues.
What has to change for that?
It's just more talking, more working the details out. This Goodlatte 2 that failed last week, and it had less votes than Goodlatte 1. It had some great improvements to it as far as border security and funding the wall. It actually had the funding for the wall in the bill. It was tied to visas from the visa lottery program that would be put in a pool that would be available as the wall was completed. It did a lot for the security side of it. It had some weaker areas on the chain migration and how we deal with the DACA population. But I think if we'll just keep working at it, we'll come up with a good plan.
You think DACA's the trip up right now?
I think E-Verify and temporary worker program visas are what the main trip up is. There's a lot of folks in the ag community that want to see more work done on the work visas. And you've still got a fundamental problem, even if you've got the border secure. I mean, that's going to be great for stopping the flow of illegal drugs. It's going to stop the flow of illegal crossings. And when I say a secure border, I'm not just talking about a wall or a fence. I'm talking about access along the border where you can patrol it. I've been down there. We've got hundreds of miles of wide open border that are just, easy access.
Yeah.
So if we can control the crossings to designated crossing points, you've still got this issue with asylum, which we want to give protection to people who are genuinely threatened and they're seeking political asylum. But you don't know if they are until you bring them in and review their case. So once they're on our side of the border, the current laws we have, they get into a system that's overloaded. You can't educate the cases that are there. So they go before a judge. The judge will give them a date to come back for court, release them, and you never see them again. But if we had an E-Verify system and some kind of biometric identifier in place, then you could deal with those cases and you could track people once they got here. Now, the other big issue are the parents of DACA children. What do you do with them? Some people say you deport them all.
What do you support?
I think we've got to find some middle ground there.
A path to citizenship?
No, a path to legal status.
Okay.
And they've broken the law. We can't ignore that. If we force them to pay a fine or be deported, gave them 5 years or something, maybe a $10,000 fine, for every million people that paid that fine, that's $10 billion that would be collected on that. You don't give them citizenship, you don't give them a right to vote, you just give them legal status, and then they can get in line to apply for visas and obtain citizenship just like everybody else. But I don't believe in giving anybody a shortcut to the front of the line, and I don't think people who have immigrated here legally are for that as well.
All right, got to wrap it up. Congressman Bruce Westerman,
Good
thank
to
you for
see you,
coming
Roby.
in. Good to see
Always.
you. All right.
Yep.
That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.